Hi guys, it's Christina Cass here down at the Dog Woman Training Academy. I'm a canine behaviorist and training instructor, and today I'm going to be answering a question for you sent in by one of our clients. So Fiona asks, why does Bella bark at the postman? She barks when anyone comes to the door but stops as soon as we tell her, but is completely different with the postman. Even if she sees him in the street, she goes mad. She will bark and cry until he comes to the door and then tears up letters as soon as they're put through the letterbox. If we stop her going to the door, she'll continue to bark and cry for about 10 minutes after he's been. Help! First of all, let's address why dogs bark in general. Now, 3 things that we need to understand about barking. Firstly, is that barking is a perfectly natural and normal canine communication tool. The second thing is that barking is a reflex, so it's not something that your dog can actually control, it's an impulse. They're born being able to do it, nobody has to teach them, but it is something that they do automatically, so chastising your dog for barking is really a waste of time. And the third thing we need to understand about barking is barking works, and that's why dogs do it. Largely, dogs' behavior is led by what's most rewarding in the circumstances, and barking often gets them the desired result. Excessive barking is usually caused by one of 3 motivators. Fear being a very strong motivator. Barking is a way a frightened dog can ask for a little bit more space and convey that they're not feeling comfortable in the current situation, and it's their attempt at making the scary thing back off. The second reason we see excessive barking is through frustration. So, as we just discussed, dogs do what's most rewarding, and very early on they can learn a pattern of behavior that gets them a reward for vocality. So I want access to my toy, it's dinner time, I want to go out, I'm frustrated that I can't reach something, and they learn quite early that if they're vocal about that, we get human interference and then they can get what they want. The third reason dogs bark is simply to sound the alarm, to let the family know of an impending intruder and keep everybody safe. Postman Syndrome is simply an exaggerated version of this behavior. And because a postman arrives at the same time every day and does the same routine every day, more or less, it allows for a ritualistic behavior on the dog's part of anticipating their arrival and anticipating the behaviors they need to perform to make the postman back off. Now, the first stage of training any dog is to really understand the emotionality behind it. And depending whether we have a dog that's sounding the alarm, a dog that's frustrated, or a dog that's fearful, we would pick very different training programs for those 3 dogs. For example, the dog that's sounding the alarm, we would probably use, in this case, just some very, very simple habitualization, some desensitization, and some simple counter conditioning to allow the dog to feel differently about the approach of a postman. So, yeah, thank you for sounding the alarm. We appreciate that you've barked and let us know. Actually, we'd prefer this behavior. And we make another behavior more rewarding for the dog in those circumstances. If we have a dog that's displaying frustrated related behavior, then we need to think a little bit more carefully about how we train this dog. Now, just to give you an example, this dog might also be very dog intense, desperate to interact with other dogs, so intense that when they get there, their behavior can be a little bit obnoxious, a little bit rude. They can often get a bad reaction from other dogs because they come in so intensely. The frustrated dog usually pulls on the lead and can display some on-lead aggression towards other dogs in their desperation to make some sort of a contact. The frustrated dog utilizes what we call a bully bark. Occasionally we see this when you're sitting watching TV at night and your dog might come all the way up and bark, bark, bark right at you, right in your face. This is a dog that's demanding attention here and now. Or they might demand that you pass them their ball or their bone or give them access to a precious resource. Their barking tends to be directly related to you and at you, rather than the sounding the alarm dog, whose vocality is externally motivated most of the time. Now, with the frustrated dog, it's very important that we do the training that we would do with the dog that was sounding the alarm, in which we say, thank you for sounding the alarm. This is the behavior we would prefer instead. And constant exposure to that stimulus would desensitize the arrival of the postman and allow us, with a little bit of clever counter conditioning, to make them feel a little bit differently about the arrival of the postman and associate it with something nice, like a behavior that's enjoyable and a reward and maybe some praise or even a treat. Now, with the frustrated dog, that's not going to be enough because they're inherently dissatisfied with the quality of their life at this moment. Now that doesn't mean that their owners aren't trying the absolute best, and it doesn't mean that the routine those owners have wouldn't be perfect for 99.9% of the dogs out there, but in this circumstance, what they're doing in their daily routine isn't enough. So with the frustrated dog, it's very important that we look at lifestyle as a whole and look at raising something that I like to call the fulfillment grid. And that's about ensuring that the dog has enough. We have an 8-element spectrum that we cover. Do we have good health, food and nutrition and feeding rituals? Do we have great social time both with people and other dogs? Do we get out for lots of exercise, lots of high energy exercise? Do we make the dog really think and give them problems to solve? So the fulfillment grid is about looking at happiness across the lifespan of the dog and making sure that they're not sensing any frustration because of a drive that's currently being unnourished. Now, whilst desensitization, habitualization and counter-conditioning are extremely useful tools when it comes to dog training, none of those will work if the dog intrinsically doesn't feel safe about the situation. With this dog, it's extremely important that we build up their confidence, slowly and gently, always working at that dog's own individual pace. This dog needs to develop coping skills for some of life's most basic and general activities, and we need to go right back to basics in order to build those from the ground up. The owner of this dog really needs to learn how to reassure that fear, making sure that we're not rewarding or reinforcing it, but showing the dog that we can be there as a calm, peaceful presence that's going to keep them safe. So let's talk a little bit about Bella. It's extremely important in dog training that we train the dog that we have in front of us, and we can learn lots and lots of wonderful theories and training methods, but it's very important that we take the dog in front of us that we're working with, do an emotional assessment, really understand how they're feeling, so that we can provide a training plan that's going to be adequate for solving their problems, making them feel great about life, and creating the behavior that the owners really need to see. A great position of knowing Bella really well. She's been a member down here at daycare since she was 12 or 13 weeks old, and now she's 13, 14 months old. Bella is a Cavachon. So the inherent breed traits we need to be aware of are those of the Cavalier King Charles and those of the Bichon Frise. Now, both of these breeds are incredibly social beings. They're drawn to social situations. They're supposed to be the social lubricant at a party, will sit on anyone's knee, will take a treat from anyone. And that makes them really want to socially engage. So it can be quite difficult for both of these breeds if they find something that they're inherently a little insecure about, because they're drawn to have that social interaction, whereas other breeds might take themselves away and have some quiet time. Both the Cavalier King Charles and the Bichon Frise will be drawn to overcome that anxiety because they want to have that closeness and that relationship. So let's talk through Bella's training program. Step 1 is going to be a postman introduction. Now, if you have a friendly postman or a postman that has a little bit of time on his hands that's willing to help, that's great. In this circumstance, I'm going to be using my husband Steve, who used to be a postman, so we have all the gear here already. And what I would like to do is to just open the door and allow Bella to make an introduction to the postman. Now, again, if we were dealing with any kind of anxiety or aggression, we might play this very differently, but Bella's a friendly, sociable little girl, so I feel very confident in taking her straight into that activity. If we're dealing with anxiety or aggression in this circumstance, it's very important that we work with a trainer. The second consideration for this activity is you must move at your dog's pace. Even if you think you have a very friendly and social little dog, if you put them in a situation that they're insecure in, it's very important that we remove them from that situation and allow them to approach it at their own pace as they're ready. Most activities done with balanced, intelligent dog training work at the dog's pace. The second thing that we're going to need to do with Bella is to stop, manage or prevent any rewards that she's getting from the current negative behavior that we're not enjoying. So in short, that means ensuring Bella can't get to the letters that come through the letterbox. Now we can do that by closing a door so that she can't get to the letters, and we can do that by putting up a baby gate or a barrier. She's only a small dog, so a low barrier might be sufficient. We could also do that by putting a mail guard on, something which catches your mail as it comes through the letterbox. The reason that I want to do this is when we want to build a new behavior, which is a couple of steps on from now, it's very important that we're not competing with a current strong reward that the dog's feeling. Now at the moment, Bella feels very frustrated when the postman arrives, and when he posts his letters to the letterbox, she has an excellent way of grabbing them and savaging them and really relieving lots of frustration that she's feeling inside. Now, in order to build the behavior that we want to see, it's very important we're not competing with that very powerful way of nourishing her frustration that she's currently got. The third element of Bella's training plan is going to be looking at the fulfillment grid. Now, I'll give you a link later on in this video where you can take a look at your dog's own fulfillment grid so you can see what we're talking about here. Now, Bella's a really energetic, feisty little dog. She's extremely confident and really enjoys social interactions. Bella does have a pulling on the lead problem when she's at home, something which we see an awful lot in dogs that are displaying frustration. So what I'd like to do is create Bella some freedom when she's out on a walk. It's clear that Bella needs a little bit more exercise than she's currently getting. She also struggles a little bit with her weight, so this would help this out also. And the way I would like to do that, because we're not sure or not whether Bella is trustworthy off the lead, and I don't like to take any risks and I want to keep dogs safe at all times, but it is important that Bella gets to sense a little more freedom. So we'll look at choosing a harness and a huge big long lead, a 50 to 100 foot lead, in which Bella could go to a park situation and experience the sensation of freedom, running and chasing our balls, getting to rough and tumble and play with other dogs in the park, but making sure that we're keeping her safe while that's happening. By attending to the fulfillment grid for Bella, what we're doing is ensuring we raise her basal mood level. So we're making her feel a little bit better about her life in general. And this gives much less need for this crazy arrival and crazy savaging of the mail when the postman arrives, because she's feeling that that drive is a little bit less important to her now. Previously, that was a way of making herself feel really good and really powerful, and now we've attended to the fulfillment grid, there's less need for Bella to try and get that out of her daily routine. The fourth activity I love to do with a barker is to capture the bark as an obedience or a trick behavior. Now, a bark, like a yawn or a shake, can be a difficult behavior to lure out of a dog. So we like to capture that when it happens, literally telling Bella what she's doing while she's doing it, giving it a vocal cue and giving it a hand gesture. To capture a bark, we literally create a noise, a sound that's going to make the dog bark, something that we know reliably will get our dogs barking. And then we give it a vocal cue and a hand gesture. So we would say, woof, Bella, good girl. Woof, Bella, good girl. Woof, good girl. This is the idea. And we would do that for a long time until we had captured that behavior. So as soon as we're knocking on something, Bella's going to be giving us her focus, wagging her tail, looking right at us and continuing to bark. And I would reward that with some affection. I'd reward it with a food treat, maybe some play, whatever motivates the specific dog that we're working with. Once we've captured the bark, we can begin to turn it into a cue by asking the behavior just a fraction of a second before we give the trigger. So I'll show you what that would look like. Having gone from knock, 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 woof, Bella, woof, good girl, woof, good girl. We then move into woof, and then the knock immediately afterwards. So we're asking for the behavior, and then we're causing the trigger that we'll know we'll get the bark. And with time and practice, Bella will understand that the hand gesture means that she needs to be vocal at that time, and there'll be a reward in it for her. Having shaped a bark on cue, woof, good girl, woof, good girl. It's then very easy to create a shh, good girl, shh, good girl. Using clicker training to capture the exact moment that we'd like to see and rewarding that, because remember, dogs do what's most rewarding. The fifth element of Bella's training program is going to be looking at building the behavior that we actually want to see. So what is it that we want Bella to do when the postman arrives? A great way of doing this is to work on something called free-form training. Now again, with this, we could utilize the harness and the big long lead that we would be using for Bella in other circumstances. And we give Bella the freedom to make the right choice. Now again, if we're dealing with an aggressive dog, this needs to be done slowly, carefully, and with professional input. In this circumstance, what I would be doing is leaving the front door open and allowing the postman to move up and down, stooge postman, to move up and down outside the door, up and down the staircase outside. Paying Bella no attention, maybe a small ruffle on the top of her head, but nothing too exciting. Really, we want to work with desensitization in that department. We're allowing Bella to habitualize to him walking up and down the stairs. And then we're going to take ourselves away from the door into the sitting room or the kitchen, and we're just going to wait. And when Bella makes that important choice to come back in and find us and leave the excitement of the corridor, we need to give her a party at that moment. We need to really, really reinforce her choice of coming through with and spending time with us. Now Bella's owners kindly provided video footage so I could have a look at Bella displaying these behaviours so that I could more accurately give a diagnosis and a training plan. And what I saw was Stuart really closely trying to manage Bella. So he was staying right with her and really trying to block that reaction from her, which is something we've talked about before and something which in mild cases can often work. In this case, Bella's just too emotionally aroused for that to mean anything at all, and all she's thinking about is getting to the mail and being able to savage it. So in this case, it's really important that we allow Bella the freedom to make the right choice. We know that closely managing it isn't working, and also you can't closely manage it when you're not there. So it's important that Bella learns the coping skills for that scenario, whether anybody's there or not. So what we will be doing is allowing Bella the freedom to choose and creating a new behaviour, which is to move away from the door. Now, once Bella is desensitized and habituated a little to the postman moving outside, we'll up that criteria slowly, gently, and working at Bella's pace, always staying below her trigger point. Eventually, we'll have him being able to walk past the closed door and post letters through and not have any reaction at all. Incidentally, when we do build up to that phase, when we are posting stooge letters, hopefully we have a mail guard to catch the letters, and we'll post that with a handful of treats too. So the treats fall through the mail guard and onto the floor. That's still allowing Bella to display an interest in the sound, but it's giving her something that she can do with her mouth to relieve frustration, i.e. eat the chews, because Bella shows us with her behaviour that that's something that's really important to her. And the last thing that we need to take into consideration for Bella's training program really is allowing time. Often people expect far too much from their dogs far too early, and what we have to be mindful of is how long has Bella spent practicing this unwanted behaviour. Now, while training a new behaviour isn't going to take that same length of time again, what we want to see is small improvements in her behaviour in the direction that we eventually want her to be in, and we reward any step along that line, working at Bella's own pace and making what we want to see a really rewarding experience. So there we have it. In short, we need to fully understand the emotional drive behind the behaviour. We need to stop, manage or prevent the current behaviour from being rewarding at all. We need to attend to the dog's fulfillment grid to make sure they're getting what they need out of life. And then we need to build a new behaviour that we want to see and make this the most rewarding thing that the dog can do in those circumstances. Happy training to Stuart, Fiona and Bella. I'm sure you'll be absolutely fine. You know where we are if you need some help. If you find yourself asking the question, what's wrong with my dog? Please pay our website a visit at www.thedogwoman.co.uk and go on our training and advice page. We have lots of free advice on there. Please print and share in the dog community so that we can spread the word about good dog behaviour. If you can't find what you're looking for on there, and perhaps you'd like to book a one-to-one with me or bring your dog on down to join one of our daycare centres, you can get in touch through the website as well. The other thing you can do is follow us on Facebook to stay abreast of any new training information and to see what we do on a daily basis with our happy packs. You can find us at facebook.com/thedogwomanuk. Bye for now.